What's going on, guys? It's your boy Salvajee. So we're back with another 3 critical tips Widowmaker guide. We covered the offense heroes, we covered the tank heroes, and in this video I'm going to be giving you guys 3 critical tips against each of the defense heroes that we have right now in Overwatch. Keep in mind, we're going to be getting defense Symmetra in the future, and Torbjorn is also going to be getting a rework. So if you want to keep up with everything Widowmaker and the 3 critical tips series for the new rework Symmetra and the new rework Torbjorn, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel for that. With that said, what are critical tips? Who is this video catered to? And of course, what are you going to be learning from this video? All of those questions are of course answered in the comment sections below. So if you're interested on that, make sure that you read the description. I mean, yeah, it's not answered in the comment sections below. Yeah, it's answered in the description. Oops, sorry. Anyways, let's get right into this guide. Okay, let's get started with Bastion. My number 1 fundamental tip when it comes down to Bastion, my number 1 critical tip: if he's behind the barrier, make sure that you guys are going around the barrier. Make sure that you guys are going around the Bastion. It's basically one of the fundamental tips on fighting Reinhardts and Orisas, and of course it also applies to Bastion, because if you keep shooting the Bastion over and over and over again when he's in front of a barrier, you're basically just not going to be able to do anything for your team. When it comes down to Bastions, you have to know positioning, and of course if you don't know positioning, make sure you check out my Widowmaker map guide. That's going to be linked in the description below. I mean, my Widowmaker map guide playlist. Okay, so my second critical tip when it comes down to facing Bastions: make sure that you guys fight them at long ranges, because they're basically completely useless at long range. For the most part, a lot of Bastions also just tend to keep shooting you, and they just tend to keep healing from long range, thinking that they're going to be able to out heal your damage, but it's of course not going to work out. The reason why this is my second fundamental, my second critical tip, is because I know Bastion is kind of dominant when it comes down to mid gold and below, and some of you guys might want some tips when it comes down to facing Bastions if you guys are playing Widowmaker in mid gold or below. So of course, make sure that you guys keep this tip in mind. I mean, Bastion is completely useless. I was about to say Hanzo, but Bastion is completely useless, guys, when you're fighting him at a range. Okay, anyways, the third tip that I have for you guys when it comes down to facing Bastions is make sure that Bastion's a very slow hero. Okay, so make sure that if your team is doing their job and if they're playing very well, make sure that you pick off the enemy Bastion as he is coming back from spawn, because that's when he's going to be the most vulnerable at. Not a lot of people know how to use Bastion in recon mode, and they mostly use him in sentry mode. So if you're able to pick off the Bastion before he is able to get set up, that's honestly something that's going to help out your team a lot greatly. With that said, now we move on forward to Hanzo. My first critical tip when it comes down to Hanzo: don't fight Hanzo at short range, guys. The other day we did a Widowmaker VOD review. We coached the Masters Widowmaker, and guess what? He lost every single duel against the Hanzo at short ranges, because Hanzo is just a short range killing machine at the moment. Specifically when it comes down to a Widow v Hanzo duel. In short range encounters with a Hanzo, you want to make sure that you at least land one shot, and then you either go for a grapple shot or you change your positioning and then finish off the Hanzo from a better position. Hanzo has a movement ability now. Hanzo has storm arrows, so he can basically shred you at close range, specifically since his projectile speed has now been increased also. Okay, if you guys are fighting a Hanzo at close range and you guys don't have your grapple, make sure that you at least try to land one shot on him and then you spray him down with the SMG, because of course the SMG will do a lot of damage if you are accurate with it. My second critical tip when it comes down to Hanzo is make sure that when he activates storm arrows, you either one, change positioning, or you basically just hide until he wastes his storm arrows. For the most part, Hanzos at higher play, you know, if they activate storm arrows and you hide or you change positions, you know, they're going to play around that. Like for example, they might try to shoot another teammate, but at lower levels, most Hanzos will activate storm arrows and they will still throw them at you even though you're hiding or even though you basically just change position. If they activate storm arrows and they're aiming towards you, make sure that you change to a position that they don't expect, so that you can of course get an easy snipe on them. The third critical tip when it comes down to Hanzo: if you guys have a clean shot on the Hanzo isn't aware of you, make sure that he uses his movement ability first, so that then you can just pick him off easily. Additionally, you can also just shoot him once, and of course if you miss and he uses his movement ability, then of course shoot him again. The basic point of this fundamental tip is that, you know, Hanzo has a lot of movement now due to the leap, so you basically want to wait until he uses his leap. Like that, he's basically not that mobile, and of course you can take him out with your Widow's Kiss. So a lot of console Widowmakers struggle with Hanzo v Widow combat. I just want to point out, guys, I'm going to be going super in depth into Widow v Hanzo combat on my Ultimate Widowmaker guide, which should be out in about a month and a half. So if you're interested in that, feel free to subscribe to the channel. But I'm going to drop a bonus tip because I know a lot of Widowmakers struggle with Hanzo. The key to fighting Hanzos, and a general tip when it comes down to fighting Hanzos, is you guys want to make sure that as he draws his bow, you basically just move towards the left or the right, or you basically just crouch, because most Hanzos, after they draw their bow, that's when they basically shoot. So what I try to do is I try to time my shots that I'm basically always shooting the Hanzo when he's drawing his bow, because that's when he's usually the most vulnerable at. Anyways, with that said, now we move on forward to Junkrat. Widowmaker can be a pretty nasty counter to Junkrat if you're pulling her correctly, and of course you do need great positioning. And again, if you need great positioning, check out my Widowmaker map guide series in the description below. But the number one critical tip when it comes down to fighting Junkrats, make sure that you guys are fighting the Junkrat at a range, because guess what, guys, the Junkrat projectiles can't really reach you if you're within a fair pretty medium to long range distance from the Junkrat. Okay, Junkrat is going to be basically completely useless when it comes down to dueling a Widow if he's really far away from the Widow. Okay, make sure that you fight the Junkrat at range so that of course he basically can't kill you and you kill him before he gets to you. Also, if you guys are fighting the Junkrat at medium to close range, make sure that you land a shot on him, and then of course you go for a grapple shot to finish off the Junkrat, or you spray him down with the SMG if you have a chance. So my second critical tip when it comes down to Widow v Junkrat, make sure that as the Junkrat activates the tire, you get in a good position where of course you can actually snipe the tire for your teammates. I cannot tell you guys how many times I have sniped tires for my teammates thanks to my great positioning. My third critical tip when it comes down to Junkrat, a lot of Junkrats tend to throw their mine on the floor and then basically just jump above you. So make sure that if you're fighting the Junkrat at medium to long ranges, you take a look at the Junkrat, you track the Junkrat. If you see him throwing a mine on the floor, that means that you need to pre-aim a little bit higher above him, because that means that he's going to jump up. So since you pre-aim a little bit up when he places a trip mine on the floor, that means Junkrat is going to be going up, which means you're going to be able to land an easy headshot on him. That is a critical fundamental of Widow v Junkrat combat that I don't see a lot of Widowmakers apply to their gameplay from time to time. Now we're going to be taking a look at Mei. A lot of Mei players usually freeze a target up and then of course just stand still and then just go for the headshot. So make sure that as the Mei player is freezing the target, that you basically take your time to basically get a centered shot on her, and of course you take her out with the headshot. It's literally an easy elim. And by the way, I know this is a pretty basic tip, but obviously, like I said, these are critical tips. These are fundamentals that you need to be applying into your gameplay to get the best out of Widowmaker. My second tip when it comes down to Widowmaker versus Mei combat, make sure that if you guys are fighting a Mei, specifically one that's very good, specifically one that's very aggressive with her ice walls, make sure that you shoot the Mei or you shoot the teammates that are around the Mei a couple of times, and then you immediately change positions, because most Meis, after you shoot their teammates a couple of times, they're just going to wall you up, right? So you don't want to waste your time shooting up their wall. You don't want to waste your time waiting for their wall to come down. That's why with Mei you have to be very mobile. You have to be moving constantly, because if she walls you, by the time she walls you out, you're probably going to be in a new position where of course you're going to be able to take out her teammates and her. And my third critical tip when it comes down to Mei, if you know that Mei has her ultimate or it's about to get her ultimate, make sure that you're in a high ground area. Make sure that you're in an area where of course you can escape her ultimate. Make sure that you're saving up your grapple, but most importantly, make sure that you shoot the Mei as she is ulting, because she's very vulnerable when she's doing that. Alright, so my number one fundamental when it comes down to Widowmaker versus Torbjorn combat, make sure that you're shooting those turrets from far away, from a really large distance. That's basically going to let you take out the turret without the turret damaging you. Now, if you're going to take out the turret from a medium range, make sure that you are above 100 health, because if you're not, the turret is most likely going to take you out. It should go without saying that when you shoot a Torbjorn turret also, and you're within a range that it can damage you, you should be basically peeking in and out of cover and shooting the turret little by little. Or should you you be taking down Torbjorn turrets, because that leads me forward to my second fundamental of Widowmaker versus Torbjorn combat. One of the things that I like to do a lot is I like to shoot the Torbjorn turret like 2 times or so, and I like to put the turret very, very weak, because a lot of Torbjorns, when their turret is weak, the number one thing they prioritize is basically just fixing their turret and going back to their turret. So you want to put the turret on really low health, and then you want to bait the enemy Torbjorn to go fix his turret, and as he's going to go fix his turret, guess what's going to happen? That's right, you're going to get an easy pick on the enemy Torbjorn. Also, my third critical tip on Widowmaker versus Torbjorn combat that I don't see a lot of Widowmakers do. Listen guys, Torbjorn is a very easy target. Make sure that if you are fighting him within close range or so, you basically just land a body shot on him. It doesn't even have to be a headshot, and then you just spray him down with the SMG. Torbjorn is a really, really easy target to eliminate with the SMG, so make sure that you're using the SMG on Widowmaker versus Torbjorn encounters. Also, if Torbjorn, a lot of Torbjorns, they activate their Molten Core as they are going back into a fight, because you know, they might have their turret, you know, basically placed up. So make sure that, you know, if you're defending, if you're attacking, and you see a Torbjorn coming in, you know, back into the team fight, and he activates Molten Core, make sure that you go for those headshots and you kill him, because it's just easy ult charge. Okay, so keep in mind guys, I am going to be doing an ultimate Widowmaker guide where I'm going to be going super in depth into Widow v Widow duels, but for now in this video I'm going to be giving you guys 3 very good fundamentals, 3 critical tips that you should take into consideration when it comes down to Widow v Widow duels. Number 1 critical tip, number 1 fundamental of Widow v Widow combat. So let's say that both of you guys have really good aim, right? If the Widowmaker spots you, make sure that you change your position. You basically try to kill her from another angle, and if there aren't any angles, if there aren't any flanks, if, you know, changing positions basically means that you're going to give your new position away, try going for a grapple shot, okay? I'm not telling you to hide, by the way. If you see an enemy Widowmaker and she shoots at you and you shoot at her, what you should be doing is, of course, not hiding. You should be changing a position into a position where she's not going to expect. Keep in mind guys, when you're fighting another Widowmaker, you shoot at her, right? And then when she hides, you basically stay aiming towards that general spot for about 5 seconds or so, because you think she's going to peek again. You guys need to use that 5-second window to change positions as quickly as possible, and then shoot her from a new angle that she's not going to expect. And make sure that when you shoot the enemy Widowmaker, that you're doing it, that you're taking a centered, accurate shot, okay? You don't want to be constantly moving. If she doesn't know your position, make sure that you're standing still and you go for a final killing blow. My second tip when it comes down to Widow v Widow duels, make sure that you stop moving so much on Widow v Widow duels. I see a lot of Widowmakers panic sometimes when it comes down to Widowmaker versus Widowmaker duels, okay? They're just jumping around all the time, they're spraying their weapon, okay? Make sure that you keep cool, make sure that you stay standing still. Every time she goes for the headshot, you know, make sure that you crouch. You know, after you take a shot, make sure that you move a little bit, you know, from left to right, maybe crouch a bit. But the point is, you don't want to be moving too much in Widowmaker duels, because it's just going to make your shots inaccurate. Also, you're going to be moving a lot, and you're going to be giving the enemy Widowmaker an opportunity to just land easy, fully charged shots on you, okay? The third critical tip on Widowmaker versus Widowmaker combat, you always want to be adapting to the enemy Widowmaker. For example, sometimes there are Widowmakers that they just keep going to the same spot over and over and over again, so you basically just want to use that to your advantage. There's a lot of Widowmaker spots that usually, you know, like to change spots very, very often, which means you're going to have to be more aware. You're going to have to be looking around more. There's also a lot of Widowmakers that they like to be going for a lot of grapple shots, so make sure that you're pre-aiming to those grapple shot positions. You always want to be adapting to the enemy Widowmaker so that you can outplay her, okay? If you guys enjoyed these 3 critical tips against each of the defense heroes in Overwatch, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so that, of course, you get catched up every time a new defense hero gets reworked, or of course we get a new defense hero into the game. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop it a like, and of course make sure to subscribe for more great guides and more great content on Overwatch, Fortnite, Hearthstone, etc. See you guys in the next one, and I hope this video helped you guys out.